IBP demand planning, consensus demand. This video covers 1.3, create consensus demand, where the statistical forecast quantity is adjusted to come up with a final consensus demand. Be aware that intervention by the demand planner is not required and a statistical forecast can flow automatically through. High level. Consensus demand. Auto redisaggregation. Support consensus demand. Data realignment. Consensus demand. Beginning with the statistical forecast quantity that was calculated previously, the demand planner will make a series of adjustments in order to come up with a consensus demand quantity. Using segmentation, the planner may choose to ignore low values, for example C's, or easily forecastable items, for example X's. Auto redisaggregation. This is a relatively esoteric concept, but quite familiar to users of supply chain planning systems. With planners working in aggregated levels with their data, there's a very real possibility that new data will sneak in and add to consensus demand, even though you intended for the demand to be no more than, say, 1,000 units. Auto redisaggregation is a nightly automated process that reapplies your overrides. Due to complexity, this process will be covered in another video. Support consensus demand. In order to track the consensus demand to financial and other departmental goals, there are a series of key figures that help in aligning the consensus demand. Due to complexity, this process will be covered in another video. Data realignment. Periodically, a planner may need to realign data in the system for a host of reasons. There are two types of data realignment in IBP that differ substantially from APO. First, there is little realignment, where an attribute might change. Say the product family is now hammers instead of tools. In that case, the data in ECC need only be updated, and the next night the new attribute will appear correctly in any report or chart. Second, there is big realignment, where the base planning level, for example, week, prod, though, cust, might change. For example, you may want to move an entire product line from location A to location B. That requires a trained IBP data analyst to execute. Details. Consensus demand. Adjusted statistical forecast quantity is an editable key figure where the demand planner overrides the statistical forecast. Adjusted statistical forecast revenue is the previous key figure times the planned price. Adjusted statistical forecast ag quantity is used to recalculate the disaggregation of an adjusted statistical forecast quantity. See auto redisaggregation. Sales uplift quantity is an editable key figure where the demand planner adds to the statistical forecast. Sales uplift revenue is the previous key figure times planned price. Demand planning add quantity is an editable key figure where the demand planner overrides any previous key figure. Demand planning add revenue is the previous key figure times planned price. Demand planning total quantity is a calculation of the previous three key figures. Demand planning total revenue is the previous key figure times planned price. Collaboration override quantity is an editable key figure that will override any previous key figures. Collaboration override revenue is the previous key figure times plan price. Consensus demand quantity is a calculated key figure that will take the collab override if populated, else the demand planning total quantity. Consensus demand revenue is the previous key figure times the planned price. Consensus demand quantity with sales order history is identical to consensus demand quantity in the future, but the past values are sales order history quantity for reporting purposes. Consensus demand quantity future is identical to the consensus demand quantity in the future, but it is blank in the past, used for reporting purposes. Consensus demand quantity no promo is the consensus demand quantity less any sales uplift quantity for the forecast error value add purposes. Data realignment. There are no additional key figures in this process. However, you do need to walk through the process. If this is simply an attribute change, the attribute is not used as a key in any master data, then make the change in the source system. On the next data load, usually the next day, the master data will be updated with this new value. This is little realignment. If the base planning level must change, usually product, location, or ship to customer, then we have big realignment. A trained data analyst will create the realignment rule, get it approved, possibly run a simulation, and then finally run the job. Big realignment is obviously more serious since you are changing core data, and the disaster recovery options are limited. Thanks for checking out Practical IBP on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the latest videos. You can click on any of the surrounding videos to learn more.